Imagine discovering a place almost twice the size of Australia, covered by nearly 90% of Earth's ice and holding around 70% of the world's fresh water. Scientists even believe that beneath its frozen surface lie enormous reserves of oil, natural gas, and valuable minerals worth trillions of dollars. A place so strategically important that every major superpower should be fighting to control it. Yet strangely, no country owns it. Not the United States, not Russia, not China, not even the United Nations. It has no permanent population, no president, no official borders, and no military protecting its territory. For more than 6 decades, the world's most powerful nations have voluntarily agreed not to claim this entire continent as their own. But why? Why would countries that have fought wars over tiny islands simply walk away from one of the most valuable pieces of land on Earth? The answer lies in one of the most remarkable international agreements ever signed. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Antarctica remains the only continent that truly belongs to no one. When we look at a world map, almost every piece of land is divided into countries. Every continent is covered by national borders, governments, and laws. Even tiny islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean belong to someone. But at the very bottom of our planet lies Antarctica, a massive frozen continent covering nearly 14 million square kilometers, making it the 5th largest continent on Earth. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than an endless wasteland of snow and ice. However, beneath ice sheets that reach almost 5 kilometers in thickness lies an entire hidden world filled with mountain ranges, valleys, lakes, rivers, and even active volcanoes. Antarctica also plays a critical role in Earth's climate. It stores around 70% of the planet's fresh water, and if all of its ice were to melt, global sea levels would rise by nearly 58 meters. Coastal cities like New York, London, Mumbai, Shanghai, and Tokyo would be devastated, permanently changing the map of our world. In many ways, Antarctica quietly controls the future of human civilization. For thousands of years, however, Antarctica remained completely unknown. Ancient Greek scholars believed that there had to be a massive southern continent simply to balance the lands in the northern hemisphere. They called this mysterious place Terra Australis, meaning the unknown southern land. But no one had ever actually seen it. During the Age of Exploration, European empires crossed oceans, discovered new continents, and mapped almost every corner of the Earth. Yet Antarctica remained hidden. It wasn't because explorers lacked curiosity. It was because nature itself made reaching the continent almost impossible. Antarctica is surrounded by the Southern Ocean, home to some of the roughest seas on the planet. Giant waves, powerful currents, freezing temperatures, and enormous floating icebergs created a natural barrier that even the strongest ships of the time struggled to survive. For centuries, this frozen fortress protected the continent from human civilization. Everything changed in 1820 when multiple expeditions independently reported seeing Antarctica for the very first time. Humanity had finally discovered the last continent on Earth. But reaching Antarctica was one thing. Surviving there was another. Temperatures regularly dropped below -50 degrees Celsius, with some areas falling below -80 degrees. Winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour made it the windiest place on Earth, while the interior received so little precipitation that parts of Antarctica are technically classified as deserts. It quickly became clear that permanent settlement would be nearly impossible. There were no forests to provide wood, no farmland for growing crops, and almost no resources that could be easily extracted using the technology available at the time. For decades, Antarctica remained little more than a frozen curiosity at the edge of the world. That perception began to change during the early 20th century. As industrialization accelerated, nations became increasingly interested in securing land that could provide strategic or economic advantages in the future. Antarctica, despite its harsh conditions, represented an enormous unknown. Countries began claiming different sections of the continent, hoping that one day its hidden resources might become accessible. The United Kingdom was among the first to establish territorial claims, followed by New Zealand, Australia, France, Norway, Chile, and Argentina. However, there was one major problem. Many of these claims overlapped. In some regions, 3 different countries claimed exactly the same piece of land. Since no nation had the ability to permanently occupy Antarctica, none of these claims could truly be enforced. The continent was quietly becoming a geopolitical time bomb, waiting for a conflict that could erupt the moment technology made large-scale settlement possible. Then, just as tensions over Antarctica were beginning to rise, the world entered one of the most dangerous periods in human history. The Second World War ended, and a new global rivalry emerged between 2 nuclear superpowers. The Cold War had begun. Suddenly, Antarctica was no longer just an icy wilderness. It had become a location with enormous military and strategic importance. If either the United States or the Soviet Union established military bases there, it could completely reshape the balance of power across the southern hemisphere. The possibility of turning Antarctica into another battlefield was becoming very real. But instead of fighting over the continent, the world's rivals made one of the most unexpected decisions in modern history. A decision that would change Antarctica's future forever. The year was 1959, and the world was more divided than ever before. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War, a conflict driven by nuclear weapons, political ideology, and the race for global influence. Almost every region on Earth had become a potential battlefield. Surprisingly, Antarctica was no exception. Military experts realized that if one superpower established permanent military bases on the continent, the other would almost certainly respond. What had once been an isolated frozen wilderness suddenly had the potential to become another dangerous flashpoint in an already unstable world. But something extraordinary happened. Instead of competing for control, 12 countries, including the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, France, Norway, Chile, Argentina, Belgium, Japan, and South Africa, came together to sign one of the most remarkable international agreements in history, the Antarctic Treaty. Rather than deciding who would own Antarctica, they agreed that no new territorial claims would be recognized. Existing claims would neither be accepted nor rejected, and no country could use the treaty to strengthen its claim. Instead of dividing the continent, they chose to protect it. The treaty also imposed strict rules that were almost unheard of during the Cold War. Antarctica could only be used for peaceful purposes. Military bases, weapons testing, and military exercises were prohibited. Nuclear explosions were banned. The disposal of radioactive waste was forbidden. Scientists from different countries were encouraged to cooperate, freely share research, and even inspect each other's facilities to ensure that everyone was following the rules. In a world filled with suspicion and rivalry, Antarctica became one of the few places where cooperation replaced competition. This agreement transformed the continent into the world's largest natural laboratory. Today, instead of soldiers, Antarctica is home to scientists. More than 70 research stations operated by dozens of countries study everything from climate change and glaciology to astronomy and marine biology. During the summer months, around 5,000 scientists and support staff live and work across the continent. In winter, when temperatures become even more extreme and months of darkness arrive, that number falls to roughly 1,000. Despite people living there for research, Antarctica still has no permanent residents, no cities, and no independent government. But if nobody owns Antarctica, does that mean anyone can simply move there? The answer is no. Every person who travels to Antarctica does so under the authority of their own country or through an approved scientific or tourism program. Visitors must follow strict environmental regulations designed to protect one of the most fragile ecosystems on Earth. Even something as simple as leaving behind trash, disturbing wildlife, or introducing non-native plants or animals can lead to serious legal consequences under the laws of the visitor's home country. The real mystery, however, lies beneath the ice. Scientists believe Antarctica may contain significant reserves of oil, natural gas, coal, iron ore, and other valuable minerals. Some estimates suggest these resources could be worth trillions of dollars. So why hasn't anyone started drilling? The answer is simple: because they legally can't. In 1991, countries signed the Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, often called the Madrid Protocol. This agreement designated Antarctica as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science, and prohibited commercial mining across the continent. Protecting the environment was considered more important than exploiting its resources. Still, many experts believe this peaceful arrangement may not last forever. As technology advances and global demand for energy and rare minerals continues to grow, the economic value of Antarctica will only increase. Climate change is also melting parts of the continent, making certain areas more accessible than they were decades ago. At the same time, countries such as China, Russia, the United States, and others have continued expanding their scientific presence by building new research stations. Officially, these stations exist solely for scientific research. Unofficially, many analysts believe they also help countries maintain a long-term strategic presence in case the political situation changes in the future. One of the biggest questions concerns the future of the Madrid Protocol. The agreement can be reviewed after 2048, leading some people to wonder whether countries might eventually push to exploit Antarctica's natural resources. However, it's important to understand that 2048 is not an automatic expiration date. The mining ban does not simply end in that year. Instead, any attempt to change the rules would require a complex international process and broad agreement among the treaty nations, making major changes extremely difficult. Even so, the possibility of future negotiations keeps Antarctica at the center of global geopolitical discussions. In many ways, Antarctica represents something almost impossible in modern history. It is proof that even rival nations can cooperate when the stakes are high enough. On a planet divided by borders, wars, and political conflicts, Antarctica remains the only continent dedicated to peace, science, and international collaboration. It has no capital city, no army, no elections, and no permanent population. Instead of competing to conquer it, humanity chose, at least for now, to preserve it. So does Antarctica truly belong to no country? Legally, yes, but perhaps a better answer is that it belongs to everyone, not as property to be owned, but as a shared responsibility to protect. Whether that remarkable idea survives the pressures of the future is a question only time can answer. And if the ice continues to melt and the demand for resources keeps growing, Antarctica may one day become the most contested place on Earth. If that day ever comes, the last unclaimed continent may also become the first place where the future of international cooperation is truly put to the test.